All right, everyone, the United States is locked and loaded and ready for battle with North Korea. And by the way, this rhetoric is something that I support, and here's why. Before you say I'm being like a warmonger or something, some people were saying that on my first video on the latest slew of North Korean news. Here's the thing. There is a difference between the way in which diplomacy is conducted in the European style and the way in which diplomacy is typically conducted in an East Asian style with regards to, a threatening or aggressive situation. In a European situation, you'd think of, the 70s or something when our president would go over to Moscow, the premier of Russia, the USSR would come over to the US, to Washington, and they would get together, and if there was any hostility, they sit down for days. And they exchange hours of pleasantries, and they tell each other, oh, I wish nothing but the best for your people, you're such a great guy. It's just a love fest. Our diplomats are shaking hands, we're gonna eat the little creamy pudding and everything else. Would you like some more sweets? Here's a cigar, here's some luscious gifts for you and your family. Oh, your daughter's just such a starlet, so beautiful. Your kids are so lovely, your country's so lovely. Oh, yeah, we need to go and take a tour of your country like tomorrow. Can we just take a week-long vacation? That's sort of how it's done. You gloss over that there's a threat and you try to appease one another as much as possible. The expectation is you don't want to raise your voice too much. You do when you're talking to your own constituents, but then when you're meeting with the foreign minister or whatever, you're very low-key. You're very respectful of one another. You don't raise the issue too much, and you say, okay, we've got to talk about more serious stuff. Could you please move these atomic weapons off Cuba? Could you please remove these atomic weapons from Turkey? It's all very, very respectful. Lots and lots of idle chatter, basically. That's not how it's done in Asia. In East Asian politics, the two sides basically size one another up, tell each other, hey, I'm big and bad, I'm going to annihilate you if you get involved, back the fuck down. And neither one is supposed to back down. It's like the posturing of bears. Bears, when they don't want to actually physically fight with one another, they exchange some warning roars, and they make themselves look big and burly, and they do a few fake charges, and the idea is that they both sort of retire from battle having not fought out their differences. It's a strategy of actual avoidance of warfare. When North Korea says that it has drawn up concrete plans awaiting Kim Jong-un's orders to fire 4 missiles into Guam's territorial waters, it's probably a bluff. Now, Obama never realized this. Obama would see a situation like that and say, oh, we call for calm, we will defend our allies, issue a few vague statements, and then ultimately do nothing. That's how you get disrespect. There was a reason why late in his presidency, when Obama went to Beijing the last time, they didn't roll out the carpet. Nobody was there to meet him. They saw him as a joke. Because in their culture, that's a sign of weakness. It's a sign that he's impotent, that he doesn't have any balls. Trump has chosen the correct strategy to deal with the situation in Korea. He's saying, hey, make my day. Go ahead and fire your fucking missiles. We'll fire something way, way worse at North Korea. That'll probably back them down and avoid conflict. Simple strategy. And if they do fire it, we are locked and loaded. We are ready to fight them. China comes out. We call for calm. We've got a plan. The ROK and US will stop its drills, which won't happen, by the way. We're not going to back off the drills with the Republic of Korea. It's never going to happen. So that's off the table. So their plan falls apart there. They agree to the last round of sanctions and the one before that, also under Trump. And prior to that, even under Obama, which should show you how pissed off they are at the North Koreans posturing. The Chinese government, I don't think, is happy about the fact that they are at least attempting to achieve miniaturization because it brings Beijing into range of atomic weapons. You think that Beijing wants that? You think that they want a situation where the North Koreans say, hey, you're never going to get involved with us either. We're going to attack South Korea. You're not going to get involved or we'll nuke you. Now, the Chinese want to control North Korea. They're losing control of the situation. Russia comes out and says, no, we don't accept an atomic North Korea. They put forth the same basic plan that won't happen, but they're trying to absolve themselves of the situation. I think the Russians and Chinese know Trump may actually decide to conduct strikes on the DPRK. So China warns him off from China doesn't want war to erupt there. If they do, they probably want to be the ones doing the actual attacks. So they say, oh, well, we'll defend North Korea if the U.S. fires first. What if the DPRK fires first? Trump is in a no-lose scenario here. That's what he's set up. Just like during the campaign, he did this over and over. If North Korea backs off, he says, oh, look, you need a strong leader to deal with this situation, folks. They're not going to do shit. And so he gets to go before the American people, say, hey, they didn't conduct their strikes. I wonder why. Could it be because I threatened to annihilate their country off the face of the earth if they did? If they do conduct the strikes, he's basically got China's blessing, carte blanche to attack the North Koreans. Hopefully, which would involve the kind of strikes I've suggested, which is bring your full air and naval power to brunt on them. Fire as many cruise missiles at their artillery and their airfields as you want, but we should not occupy. And that's the real sticking point that I would have with a possible Trump, Mattis, McMaster sort of plan. If they suggest that it's a good idea to bring U.S. troops into North Korea, I will completely oppose the idea and probably back off all support of Donald Trump. If he were to suggest that. If it's just striking North Korea with the goal of, hey, we're going to remove their nuclear sites, we're attacking their missile systems, and hopefully they learn their lesson and don't, haul off and attack South Korea, there would be a narrow window there where limited U.S. strikes could be used. We could assert our dominance over the Korean peninsula. China won't get involved if the DPRK is fired first. It might not even lead to a full war. We might be able to destroy their atomic deterrent without them actually attacking South Korea. And then if they do, obviously it leads to war. But the Chinese aren't going to get involved. The Chinese would probably invade too. They would invade specifically the northern end of the country to secure all the coal and minerals that are up there in the mountains. That's what they would want. That's what they're hoping for. They probably hope that Trump will strike North Korea. Why do you think they agreed to sanctions that they knew would cause North Korea to issue such threats? It's not, you've got a weird situation now where people like John McCain are fundamentally agreeing with North Korea over the President of the United States. Nobody seems to even notice this. I oppose warmongering. I don't think that a bunch of North Koreans should be killed. I do think that targeted strikes on their nuclear sites are at this point appropriate, because they keep issuing threats against their neighbors. It's not an issue of, oh, they're going to nuke the U.S. It has nothing to do with that. They're not going to nuke the United States. It's an issue of in the future they might have the ability to do so. And once they gain that ability, their hope is that they can invade and reunify the peninsula under communism, and they can do so without the United States thinking it appropriate to respond. We would have to abandon South Korea. We would have to abandon one of our primary East Asian allies and allow the North Koreans to absorb the peninsula. What happens then? What happens if they decide, oh, yeah, we've got a beef with Japan still, long simmering cultural differences, so we're going to attack them too. We're going to nuke Pyongyang. Is the United States going to be willing to respond again when there are a dozen North Korean subs out somewhere in the Pacific with atomic weapons capable of firing at the west coast of the U.S.? Are we going to be willing to respond at that point? Trump warned us in the 90s that this would be a problem. He warned us around the time that Clinton was striking a deal with them. Hey, it's not going to work. They're going to attain atomic weapons. And they did. Trump was right. He was right 20 years ago. And people want to act like he's insane for suggesting it's still a problem. He predicted it would happen. And he was right. Clinton was wrong. Bubba Bill, greatest living Democrat, blah, blah, blah. He was wrong. He thought they would freeze their nuclear program if he gave them nuclear material. How dumb can you be? It was dumb. Then again, Bill Clinton also thought that banning sporting rifles would be a good idea. So, not necessarily the brightest bulb. Really good at speaking, really charismatic, before he got crazy and old. And started falling apart because he's not eating hamburgers anymore. Somebody needs to get that dude a grease infusion or something. He looks like walking death. But Trump was right at the time. He was right back in the 1990s. Almost 20 years ago. I'm a little kid wandering around. Most of you are like little kids or something. Trump was right. Clinton was wrong. Now people want to jump down his throat for realizing how you're supposed to respond to the North Korean threat. He has to threaten them. He can't, if we keep pulling the Obama card and being very European style, very dry and boring and non-committal, North Korea will run roughshod over the entire world because there won't be anybody to stop. The Chinese have shown they're, at this time, unwilling to really do anything other than agree to some sanctions. That's an improvement, but it doesn't solve the situation. North Korea, I don't believe these latest intel reports saying North Korea has miniaturization and, by the way, maybe 60 atomic weapons. Bullshit. They said that back in 2013, and there are two veins within the lamestream media right now. One says, oh, the original report was right, Obama ignored it. This is the way to get the Republicans on board with World War III, I guess. That Obama was just an asshat, didn't listen to the report, and suppressed it. The other vein is, oh no, North Korea maybe now has them. The original report was bullshit, and this is probably just a recycling of the same bullshit report, I guess to get the Democrats on board or something like that. But if Trump suggests occupying the Korean Peninsula, I mean sending in a bunch of ground forces, no, I wouldn't support that, not in a million years. It'd be a bloodbath. Because a lot of people in North Korea think U.S. soldier means cannibalism, rape, and pillaging. They think that that's the case. Of course they're going to take up arms against him. But if a bunch of South Koreans move in, they haven't been told the same thing. They've been told that the South Koreans are basically their delusional cousins. That they're basically their less well-off, Western-controlled cousins, but ultimately, yeah, they're lawful and they're part of the cleanest race, as the DPRK would put it. So them showing up, I don't think, would cause massive peasant revolt. In other words, fewer people on all sides would die. The death toll would be far lower. But we do need to do something about the artillery, especially near Seoul, in the wake of any response to North Korea. But if North Korea is crazy enough to conduct a missile test towards Guam, it'll probably lead to a regional war. Again, another thing, I'll say this. If they do conduct such a test, flying their missiles over Japan, violating their sovereignty, and towards Guam, violating ours, which would require a military response, I strongly warn against the use of nuclear weapons against the North Koreans. It will be widely condemned. It will be used as propaganda against the U.S. in virtually all corners of the world. The response should be conventional. The response should be launch barrages of cruise missiles and Tomahawk missiles and everything else into the country, destroy their airfields, destroy their missile sites, destroy their naval assets, destroy their artillery, go whole hog on their military installations, but you'd best hope that it's as targeted as possible. Degrade their military capabilities and let the South Koreans handle it. Give them all you've got, but don't give them any nukes. If you suddenly nuke Pyongyang, the condemnation would be also within this country. Trump would be forced out very quickly because he'd be Congress would use it as an excuse to force him out of office. A lot of his core fans wouldn't support it either. I know I wouldn't. I'm not really a Trump core fan. I'm more like, well, Trump is more sane than the last few people that were in office and gets no credit for it. But as far as issuing a threat and saying we're locked and loaded, who has a problem with that? North Korea is basically saying the same thing. This is the strategy you have to employ when you're dealing with a rogue regime like this. This isn't some peace-loving European country Trump is threatening. This is the most brutal and totalitarian regime in the world, one of only 2 states with a rogue nuclear program, and one that threatens to use those atomic weapons on us and our allies. We need to stop thinking of them as in the same league as France or Poland or something like that. They're not even in the same league as Russia or China. They are completely hostile towards the Western world. And if they had the means, yeah, they would annihilate us from off the face of the earth. We have to come to terms with that fact and deal with the fucking problem. That's about all. Peace out.